Hi guys, this is our celebrity hour, or rather celebrity minutes, and if you are shocked by the statement you've seen just at the beginning of this program, I advise you not to be shocked, because the same statement was made by the other singers, the great tenors like Pavarotti, maybe a little bit more polite way. Well, in this practical lesson I'm going to give you some famous Caruso exercises, and it's very important to understand a confusion about Caruso's explanation and his technique. To clarify this confusion is very important because it's the essence of what Caruso meant by adding certain comments on his exercises. I talked about this confusion in my earlier programs, but this is important to remind you. In some manuscripts of his exercises, you clearly see that Caruso suggests to modify the vowel when you ascend or descend, like in certain range turns into O and then into U. And he marked this. Does that mean that Caruso himself used these modifications all along? Another confusion that came with Caruso's era is, how do we cover voice? And you know, this terminology is so vague, so contradictory, that we have to clarify it. We just have to simply state what we mean by covering. Because some singers, they do apply their voice absolutely correctly without any modification of the vowel and still call it covering. Let us state a very clear and simple definition of the covering. And let's accept this, at least for my lessons, that cover is a technique that modifies your vowels in order to support better. According to his direct witnesses like Fucito, his accompanist, they all say that Caruso never modified vowels and his larynx never moved when he sang either high or lower notes. That's one of the secrets of his consistency. There's also a scientific statement of the scientists who looked upon many singers, and they noticed that the better technique, the more consistent voice is, the less larynx moves. So that's kind of not a personal opinion. It's an opinion of the science of acoustics. Now about covering. Covering is not necessarily a bad technique. If you use it, smartly, you can achieve great results, because there were great singers who used covering as a tool. For example, Franco Corelli. To my opinion, Enrico Caruso, Beniamino Gilli, Jussi Björling and Pavarotti did not use covering technique, though, as I mentioned, Pavarotti says about covering, it's just a matter of definition, what he meant by covering. It's a confusion, let's take it off, okay? He meant by covering the darkening of the voice when it ascends. So it's a natural darkening of the voice, not a purposeful change of the vowel into A, into O, U, or any other vowel that make you easier to support this particular note. But it just gets darker. And let's examine why it gets darker. Because we expect it to get a little bit lighter. In natural speaking, if we scream, if we go up in the high notes, usually our screaming is very light. You can destroy your vocal cords if you scream. And then, if you, let's say, keep your larynx always down or in the same position when you go up to the scale, this natural voice will stay with the same color, which we don't expect to hear. And that's why we sometimes confuse also darkening of the voice from the passaggio moment to the top notes as something close to covering. You see, but there is a difference. And I'll tell you the difference. First of all, when you sing uncovered but well supported ah on the top, it sounds not like ah, it sounds like ah. But your mouth is open. It does not make any shape of other vowel than ah. So when you sing modified vowels, you turn ah into O. And that also reflects in the vowel shape of the mouth. And talking about Caruso, Fucito, his accompanist, He writes in his book that he never heard Caruso modifying his vowels like he wrote in his manuscripts. You will see that in a score, the A, O, U thing, but you have to be clear about that Caruso never modified the vowels, and that was the part of his great technique and great consistency of his voice. You see, the true nature of the Caruso's technique basically was discovered by Beniamino Gigli. And Beniamino Gigli, when he was asked how does he cover his voice, he said, "I never cover my voice." And you see the very similarities in the voice and technique of Enrico Caruso and Beniamino Gigli. It's a dark voice, dark and bright, yet pure chiaroscuro. Nevertheless, Beniamino says, well, I do not modify, I just support it so well. And that is a great explanation of the Caruso technique or Gigli technique or any technique that goes for perfection. I think also this confusion comes forward because of the difficulties of natural support for natural vowels. It is easier for us to turn A into O and to U finally if we are doing extended exercise that we touch passaggio and higher register. That is somewhat of a help for a young student to get this higher note by a little trick. It's called modification of the vowel or covering. So let's start. This exercises come from the old München, Germany edition of 1924. So there are certain suggestions coming along with these exercises. First exercise, it was his favorite exercise and he sang it very slowly, as slow as possible. So here it is.